with all of the believers in the mosque so we can begin to chart what the needs are of the believers, ultimately for the purpose of servicing and meeting the needs of the believers here in Muhammad's Mosque number 4. Goal number 3 is to have a 9 ministries conference, a kind of like a coming out conference, and of, not, coming out in the Muslim way, and a 9 ministries conference, possibly on the campus of Howard University, where we would showcase, after building a foundation here in the mosque, showcase the 9 ministries and invite the community to participate. Certainly, we are here in Washington, D.C., where we had the Million Man, the Million Family, and the Millions More movement. So there is a groundswell of support for this work, for this mission, and we've got to lay a right foundation. Certainly Mosque 4 being foundation, we've got to lay that right foundation and then go and establish ourselves and have that conference for the 9 ministries. Goal number 4 is to make Muhammad's Mosque solvent, to make sure that we address adequately all of the bills that we have to do so that we can, as Minister Farrakhan explained, the bills of the nation that he worked on in order to burn the debt. We want to do the same here at Muhammad's Mosque. Outside of the building, there are all of the regular bills that we have to deal with. So those are 4 wonderful goals that we all agreed upon, we had dialogue on, we had a vote on, and it passed, I believe it was unanimously or close to unanimously, of all of those laborers and ministry heads that were present. And so I think we are on a right course, and the spirit and information and knowledge received in New Buffalo, Michigan. And so I just would like to acknowledge the fact of that progress, and certainly give ourselves a big round of applause for the wonderful work. All praise be to Allah. And of course, we need your help. There are 9 functioning committees, and we had 7, and the last 2 committees have now come on and are functioning well, or beginning to function well, Health and Human Services and Defense. And we've got active projects and programs and services going on in all of the committees, and we need your help and your work to make those things go. We have a mosque newsletter, we have the bi-weekly Food for Life buying co-op with food being delivered to the believers. We've got the Prayer in the School campaign and the initiative to improve the Muhammad University of Islam. We've got a computer in every household campaign. You heard Mr. Farrakhan re-emphasize that for the nation. We've got the a rights handbook being come out by Legal Defense and Justice Committee, and we've got many projects. A financial literacy workshop is working on an income property for the mosque, and so there are plenty of programs and initiatives, and you've got ideas as well to help us grow this wonderful work. So I want to stop there and take us on to the portion of today's program, which is certainly special. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the distinct pleasure here in Washington, D.C. of having Dr. Abdul Muhammad here present with us so that we could learn locally, but also be an assistance and help to the country. And so we didn't know it before when these local meetings were being taped. Never would have imagined that they would be viewed. And I was slightly startled when Dr. Aleem asked at the conference how many people viewed all the tapes, and the vast majority of the room hands went up. But it was a good showing that folks had done their homework and were prepared, ready to get busy. And so we are blessed that I think not only of having Dr. Aleem local, that we can continue in this lesson, in this mission, but really an example of the consistency. And Minister Farrakhan asked on the farm about those who get tired and who give up. And there have been many who can provide incredible help, who have skill and talent in the mosque, who have gotten tired because of they didn't like something or things didn't go well. And Mr. Farrakhan said, well, who are you following? And he said, I've had pain every day of my 52 years in the Nation of Islam. Right. While obviously also having incredible joy and spirit, but we've got to be able to be those who can endure to the end. And so I'm thankful to Allah that Brother Dr. Aleem, who was the local minister in D.C. in the late 70s and early 80s, and the regional minister in Washington, D.C., and then the national spokesperson for the Nation of Islam, and went back to his medical practice and the Abundant Life Clinic and the wonderful work with Qumran and low-dose alpha interferon, and continued to teach all across the country, continues now to almost be in a different city every single weekend across the country, doing the health clinics and the health screenings and working with our people across the country, while at the same time for years working with Minister Farrakhan to help evolve our Nation of Islam. And Minister Farrakhan went through it around that discussion in 2000 on the Potomac, the banks of the Potomac here, and asking that how will we make sure that the nation doesn't fall again? Because we will not let it. And so, again, the persistence of the Commission for the restructuring and reorganizing the Nation of Islam, and the Executive Board, and then the Constitutional Convention, and then most recently, of course, the National Laborers Conference, making his word bond. The hereafter is now for my people. And so to continue that wonderful work, please help me introduce Dr. Abdul Amin Muhammad.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the All-Wise, the True, and the Living God, who we believe appeared among us in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever. We thank Master Farad Muhammad for his coming. We thank him for raising from the midst of us the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, cleaning him up, lifting him up, preparing him to be a perfect leader, teacher, and guide among us. And in the process, turning him into, I'm very anxious in a way to get started, because this was some unfinished business from the conference on the phone. Things got so intense when we started working on the mosque work plan that we had to modify the schedule. And there were 2 or 3 planned presentations that didn't take place. And this one bothered me more than the other 2, which was forming the ministries, because that can wait very easily. But this actually is critical because sometimes when we are introduced to a new experience, well, that's what it is. It's a new experience that we don't quite understand. And whether we like it or whether we don't like it, it's something new. And it's like a lot of things that are very fast-moving and exciting. While it's happening so fast, you don't actually have a chance to pay attention to what is really going on. And you miss a lot, even though you gain a lot. I wanted to thank Minister Kadir and all of the laborers here at Muhammad's Mosque number 4. And I want to thank all of you for being willing to host these kinds of meetings. I want to thank Minister David for his invitation, I believe back in March, to be a part of these meetings. And like he expressed earlier, he didn't know, Minister Kadir didn't know that you were going to be on nationwide video. Brother Kadir. Thank you. And I didn't know it either. I didn't know that after the first video was made that there would be a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth and a seventh. I didn't know that the #1 spectator of those videos was going to be the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I was shocked when I had a chance to meet with him, and he knew every detail of every video. And the same with the workbook. I was shocked and amazed when he started questioning very specific points in the workbook that he was studying at that time. And I went to him prior to the conference one time, and I was pleading the case of those who said that they were having a difficult time with the workbook and reading through it and doing all of the things that had to be done for the conference. And he said, brother, as busy as I am, if I can watch all of the video, if I can read the workbook and study the workbook, then what excuse does anybody have? And so that was the force and the power that drove the conference. Let me say one other thing. Do you think that I would be ambitious enough to think that we could pull off a national conference of laborers in less than 6 weeks? Do you think that I would think that that is possible? If you ask me to do that, I say, well, no, we need maybe 12 weeks. But the minister wanted it done on Labor Day weekend. And because of the hotel situation, it ended up being a week later. So I'm just giving you a little bit of background about how the conference took place. And I'm saying all of that to say this, that the conference has not ended. It's going on now. This is a continuation of the conference. And this conference notebook that some of you have, how many have this conference notebook? Okay, well, those of you who don't have it, then why don't you go online to the atonementcommission.com and download it. How are you going to participate in the conference if you don't have your notebook, if you don't have your study materials? Everything that was made available to the laborers who were invited to participate in the conference is made available to you. Since you could say the laborers are not laborers anymore. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Why does everybody look like you so... What's wrong? See, if as Brother Kadir corrected me, I used the title. Actually, I did that on purpose to see whether somebody would correct me. And I'm glad he did. Because sometimes we allow wrong to exist. We allow people to make mistakes, or sometimes even to deliberately do things that aren't correct. And then we sit there and we know it's not correct. But there's something about us in our current state that allows us to tolerate wrong and to tolerate mistakes. And why should we have a tolerance for mistakes? Or why should we have a tolerance for that which isn't correct? Why shouldn't we be very intolerant over mistakes, over errors, over wrong things that should not exist? They only have existence if we don't bring the light of truth to it. Then that wrong thing that seemed to be so powerful turns out to be very weak and as fleeting as the darkness is before light. Is everybody all right?
Yes, sir.
I don't believe it. I'm telling you right now. Because I know that automatic response. Everybody all right? That's right. And you lying. And I want you to know I can tell when you're lying. Just like you can tell when I'm lying. Or you can tell when any person is lying. And one of the major benefits of the dialogue circle is you can instantly tell who's lying. So the liar does not like dialogue. Does not like to sit in the dialogue circle. The hypocrite does not feel comfortable there because they can't be hypocritical in a circle of dialogue where you are required to speak what is in your heart. Truthfully and with courage. The coward does not like dialogue because the coward is thinking something that they're scared to speak. And they're being niggardly because they're withholding from the community something that should be shared. So this is a whole new thing. And it takes people by surprise in one sense, although on another level, once you get involved in a dialogue process, it turns out to be very, very easy and very, very natural and in accord with your nature.
Yes, sir.
Now, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan did say that the spirit on the farm for those days of the conference was the highest that he has ever seen in his 52 years in the Nation of Islam. How many of you were at the conference? And how many of you felt that the spirit was very high? And that there were smiles on faces that haven't smiled in a long time. And that there was a feeling of joy. And even verging on the point of giddiness. Where people were really, you could almost say, if you wanted to be cynical and skeptical, you could say they were tripping. But they weren't tripping. They weren't giddy. They were just happy.
Right.
That's the natural state of the believer. So when you find believers who are unhappy, lacking in joy, lacking in spirit, then you are looking at an unnatural state of affairs.
Yes, sir.
And it means that something is wrong.
Yes, sir.
That's why I keep asking, I'm just looking at you. You all don't look happy enough.
Come on.
You don't look happy like you should. So that lets me know that there's something wrong. Even though you say it's all right, I know that you're lying. And I really want to find out why you're lying. And what you're lying about. Rather than telling the truth about your actual condition. See, as a doctor, I hate it when patients lie to me. Because all they do when they lie is that they delay the diagnosis. They make it that much more difficult to find out what's really going on. So that help can be rendered. So being unhappy is, maybe it's just a bad habit of Negro.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It could be.
Yes, sir.
Just a bad habit. That we've been unhappy for so long that it just seems natural.
Yes, sir.
And the opposite seems unnatural. Even though to be happy is the greatest desire of your God.
Yes, sir.
He didn't come to make you unhappy. Islam is not given to us as a religion to make us unhappy and miserable. Some of you really look horrible. What's wrong?
Ramadan.
See, maybe it just broke your Ramadan.
Oh, Ramadan broke them. No, it's not that, brother. It's not that. I appreciate it. So the reason I'm sort of emphasizing that is because that's what we have to work on.
Yes, sir.
See, our job with one another is to make everybody happy.
That's right. That's right.
That's what our job is.
Yes, sir.
And if we're not doing a good job at it, then people are not happy.
Right.
And it shows in their faces. When we were on the World Friendship Tour, we went to Zaire and paid a visit to Mobutu. And when we were with Mobutu at his palace up there on the hill, in the midst of one of the poorest countries in the world, he had about 50 or so drummers and dancers. And on his command, they started drumming and dancing. And that was the most pitiful drumming and dancing that I have ever seen in my life. It was actually painful to listen and to watch them going through the motions of what should have been a joyous activity, but they weren't doing it because they wanted to. They were being commanded to do it.
Yes, sir.
And there were men all around with weapons. And I guess they were trained to use it on anybody that didn't obey the order to sing and dance and beat the drums. So this happiness thing is very, very important.
Yes, sir.
Because happiness or smiling is a very good indicator of the inner state of any person. And some haven't cracked a smile yet. Look pitiful, mournful, even. This is amazing. I didn't intend to talk like this, but I have to respond to what I'm looking at.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And clear it up. If you're not happy and you're not smiling, it's because you have a problem. And if you don't confront your problem, then you will never solve it. If you don't solve your problems, then you'll never be happy. You will set yourself in heaven only when you solve all of your problems. You can't solve your problems by wishing them away. You and I should not believe in a mystery God that somehow, in some mysterious fashion, some magical being is going to appear and clean up all the problems and deliver us and give us our salvation. We shouldn't think like that. That's not what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us to believe in. He taught us the reality of God. That God is a living man with supreme wisdom, and armed with supreme wisdom, any man or woman is God.
Yes, sir.
Armed with supreme wisdom, any man and any woman can solve any problem.
Yes, sir.
Even you. Yeah, pointing at you. Why are you looking somewhere else? We act like people don't see us. Like you're invisible. You're not invisible. That's the mystery God that's invisible.
Come on.
You're the living God. You're not invisible. People can see you. And you can see people. So why don't you look at one another?
Yes, sir.
And be looked at. Without shying away. Like you wish you weren't here. Or like you think you aren't here. No, you're here in this universe, in this world, in this mosque, in this room, at this time. And you have a presence.
Yes, sir.
And you have more than just a presence. Because you're more than just a warm body in a seat occupying space. but you're a living being in the image and likeness of the living God. And you got work to do.
Yes, sir.
You can't do your work acting like you're not here, or that you have no part in it. You do. And so it's time for us to start acting like that. And when we start acting right, acting like we have a part to play in all of what this is, then you start getting happy. Because it's good to be yourself. It's not good to be other than your own self. So I didn't intend to start like that. What I intended to start with was this verse on the Holy Quran, these couple of verses here. It says, when the disciples said, O Jesus, son of Mary, is thy Lord able to send down food to us from heaven? The question. Is thy Lord, they didn't say our Lord, said thy Lord able to send down food to us from heaven? He said, keep your duty to Allah if you are believers. Sort of sidestep the question. They said, here's a dialogue. They said, then he said, now they say again, we desire to eat of it, and that our hearts should be at rest, and that we may know that thou hast indeed spoken truth to us, and that we may be witnesses thereof. We want to eat the food from heaven. We want our hearts to be at rest, and we need something that will verify that what you're saying to us is true, so that we can then bear witness that it's true. Jesus, son of Mary, said, O Allah, our Lord. So he changed the pronoun. They said, thy Lord. He's praying, our Lord. Right. O Allah, our Lord, send down to us food from heaven, which should be to us an ever-recurring happiness. So the first of us and the last of us, to the first of us and the last of us, and a sign from thee, and give us sustenance, and thou art the best of sustainers. See, we're like that. We're like those disciples. That we think somebody else got a Lord that can do great things. So we go to the one that we think got a godly connection, and we implore that one to make something happen for us and to give to us what we need. And but the Jesus, he knows that his Lord, his Lord, is also our Lord. And that whatever he can do with the Lord, so could any of the disciples. See, now that's the point of disbelief for most people. See, they actually will accept that if there is some holy man that they become acquainted with, they actually are quite willing to accept that that holy man can bring down food from heaven and feed everybody. But when it gets to the point of whether they can do that, now, see, that's where the disbelief is set. Because we believe in a God that we have never seen. But we don't believe in one another that we see every day. And we fail to see the God that is in one another, and we fail to see the God that is in self. So therefore somebody who does believe and does keep their duty has to pray a prayer and do an act, do a work that makes the food come down from heaven by the grace of God, in hopes that the disciples who witnessed that, who experienced that, will get it. That the self-same thing could be done by any one of them. And the same God that answers Jesus would answer them if they only would keep their duty and call on Him.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't know if you get what I'm saying. No, they don't get it yet. See, but that's why we have to keep trying.
Yes, sir.
Now, the joyous feeling, the high spirit in the conference is something that can be attained by any of us at any time.
Yes, sir.
We're so used to having experiences of a short duration. See, we're used to falling in love for a short time and then falling out of love for a long time. We're used to having good love for an instant and then bad love for the rest of your life. We're used to good things happening briefly, momentarily, fleetingly, but then the rest of the time is that same old, same old. Down in the doldrums, down in the basement, depressed. Yeah, climb up to the mountaintop, take a breath of air, because we got to go back down into the valley. So we have been programmed to think. But why can't you stay up in heaven? Why must you leave? Why, when you get to the mountaintop, why can't you stay there? Why, when the spirit is this high, why can't it stay there? Why can't you maintain it there? Well, you can. That's the whole purpose of what we're here to talk about tonight. See, because my great fear on leaving the conference, and I expressed this to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is that the laborers will go back home and they just learned a little bit about dialogue, but they're not the masters of it. And then they will try it and it won't quite go the way it's supposed to go. It won't quite go the way it was at the conference. And then old habits die hard. Then they'll slip back into some of those bad habits. And then before you know it, the spirit that is generated in dialogue will be replaced with another spirit. So I said to the laborers before we adjourned the conference that a spirit killer could stand before you and within 30 seconds the spirit that is here will be all the way down there. Now, the truth of it is that if there is such a thing as spiritual science, then it must obey the laws of cause and effect. Otherwise, it's not science.
Yes, sir.
Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
See, a scientist is one who uncovers the cause and effect relationship between things. So that at a certain point, the scientist will say A causes B. So therefore, in the future, if I need B, then I have to go to the cause A and apply the cause, and I will produce B. So if I run out of B, I don't have to get all upset and walk around with a long face like I don't know what to do. All I have to do is get A, which is the cause, apply it, and produce B. And if it's true science, it works every doggone time.
That's right.
And it's not personal. See, someone who is a deceiver will make you think that it's personal with them. I do that. Well, if you do it, then that's evidence that anybody can do it. See, whatever one human being can do, then any human being can do it. If one human being can type, then that means all human beings can type. If they apply themselves in the same way, they all end up being able to do it. If one is a carpenter, that's evidence all could be, if they wanted to be, carpenters. If one is a doctor, that's proof that any could be a doctor. If they did what that person did to become a doctor, they would become a doctor. There ain't no mystery in it. It's science. It's the law of cause and effect. So what we want to look at tonight is what caused the high spirit at the conference. So that, as Jesus said, it can be an ever-recurring happiness. What does ever-recurring mean? What does it mean? Over and over and over and over and over again. That this heavenly food isn't just a one-time thing. And we'll be sitting around 10 years from now. You remember when? And we're good for that. You remember when? And we used to this and we used to that. Well, people who talk like that are people who don't know what caused what it is that they loved in the past. So you remember when we talked on that picture, the picture of the resurrection.
Right.
Where we asked the question, does that man at the end of the line, who is the beneficiary of the work of resurrection, does he understand the means and the method by which he was gotten up? Or is he just sort of like the stupid beneficiary of it? He's up, but he doesn't know how he got up. Because if he does not know the means and the methods by which he was gotten up, then he's powerless to get somebody else up.
Right.
Then he got to send them back to the one who got him up.
Right.
And pretty soon the one that got him up is overwhelmed and overburdened. Got more work than he can handle. Because at that point what he needs more than anything else is helpers. I mean, what did Jesus need disciples for? Just to follow him around like groupies? And he still got to do all the work. While they sitting around looking and gawking. As the minister said, people would never have learned about Jesus until the apostles figured it out that they had acts that they must perform in Jesus' name, and that's what made Jesus known among the people. So now, see, this is the question that we have to ask ourselves. Have we now arrived at the point where we recognize our responsibilities as disciples? Or not? Or are we still the gawkers? The hangers-on? I'm asking a question. Have we realized that or not? One says no. What do you say?
I say yes. I say yes.
What do you say?
Yes, sir. I realize.
Yeah, we got responsibilities. You have received so much. What are you hanging around like you're going to get some more? If you never got another morsel of blessing or teaching of the supreme wisdom, well, you got enough to raise a world.
Right. That's right.
So the fact that we is laying around, sitting around, hanging around, expecting more. Like we're some beggar man. And we've been given the vault full of gold. So what are we still begging for? Like we don't have nothing. It's just that the point of realization has not been reached in our consciousness for us to wake up and understand what we have been given and who we are. Now, let me get to my subject. I told Brother David I would try to do this in an hour. I said I would try. Now, that was the floor arrangement of the circles. And there were 31 circles, but only 30 were occupied. Now, in the Bible, in the first chapter of Ezekiel, it talks about wheels within a wheel, and it says that the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. So, there were living creatures in all of the 30 wheels. There were 24 that were arranged in a circle. In the manner of the 24 scientists. As the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave it to us that Sunday from the farm, he said, Master Farad Muhammad's desire is to bring us up to equality with the scientists who control the weather, raise mountains, write the history, and then walk into what we have written.
Right.
So there were 30 circles with 24 would-be scientists.
Yes, sir.
Should be. Well, why would we say would be? Should be. Because those individuals were put in a circle. They didn't arrange themselves. When they registered for the conference, they were given random numbers, so that they were randomly assigned to circles, and then each circle was given one problem of the nation to solve. But for the most part, the individuals who were arranged in the circles were unconscious of the fact that they were operating like a scientist. Because if they had been told ahead of time that you're being asked to be a scientist, 99.9% of them would have said that I'm no scientist. How could you be other than a scientist when you've been given the supreme wisdom?
Good question.
And you've been soaking it in for 77 years, but yet you insist that you're no scientist. You want to play the helpless role, the dumb Negro role, the woe is me role, the victim role. You like playing the blame game, as though there's somebody else that's at fault for what you haven't accomplished. When in fact, with what you have been given, there is no opponent that can overcome you. There is no problem that you can't solve. There is no resistance that you can't defeat. But those who have been given so much and who have so much, it's like we're in a dream. Instead of a recurring happiness, it's like a recurring nightmare. As though slavery isn't over. When it's been over for more than 100 years. But yet you still hear us talking about what they did to us in slavery more than 100 years ago. More than 77 years after God came after us, we're still talking about what they do to us and what they won't let us do and the limitation that we're under and the restrictions that we're under and all the disadvantages that we have in our life and in our mission. And all around us are examples of people who are moving out in the direction of progress and accomplishment, and we sitting around as though we can do nothing.
Good teacher.
So the minister asked the question at that Sunday lecture, what is this sickness that afflicts us? This willful ignorance. I say willful because you have been flooded with wisdom.
Right.
But still insist on being dumb. So you can remain irresponsible. How could ignorance exist even if Master Farad Muhammad didn't come? In 2007, all you got to do is hit Google. And in 5 minutes, anything that you want to know, you would be the master of it. I just found out today, Google actually copies or replicates the entire internet every day. Whole universities have their whole libraries online. So how could anybody possibly stand up today and say that you don't know? And how could people sit in the presence of such people and actually believe that they don't know and treat them like they don't know? See, so we just have to start telling the truth. No, none of us can claim to know everything, but we know way more than most of the people who are building nations, who are building civilizations, who have built civilizations in the past and are building them today. We know way more than they knew or know. All these immigrants that come to America and start building businesses, they can't even speak the language. But they look at America as a land of opportunity while we're trying to tell them how bad it is. How horrible it is. And what they won't let you do. Then the thing about it is, and this is what really gets me. Then some of us join the Nation of Islam, and then we turn the Nation of Islam into that. That the Nation of Islam is a place where you go where they won't let you do nothing. Where you turn the God of Islam into your wicked slave master. That seems like all he does is get pleasure out of torturing the righteous and putting you through what you call trials. But what is really trying us, for the most part, is our dishonest ignorance. I call it dishonest ignorance because it's not really ignorant. You're just pretending to be ignorant. You're just being irresponsible. So you are the creator of most of your own problems. You can't even put it on the white man. He ain't done nothing to you lately.
Yes, sir. Come on.
If it's being done to you, you're doing it to yourself.
Yes, sir.
And you're doing it to one another. And we need to stop.
Yes, sir.
and get on with our real work,
Yes, sir.
which is not to give one another problems. It's just find solutions. Is everybody all right?
Yes, sir.
Now that sounds a little bit more sincere.
Yes, sir.
Not altogether sincere. Can we have the next slide? Oh, well, and of course the minister made it clear that the circle number 1 was empty. And I wish we had the photograph to show you that there was actually a vessel made of glass crystal filled with pure water that was in that center circle. And Master Fard Muhammad used to do things with water. And some of his followers used to do things with water. Master Fard Muhammad could bring up the scientists in the water and hold conversations with them. So the water was placed there at the center of the dialogue as some kind of a receptacle to receive the presence of God, whether in a visible sense or maybe in an invisible sense, but nonetheless the property of water gives us the characteristic of life. Now some of you are familiar with a book that Mother Tanetta and others have made known to us, entitled The Message in the Water. You can find that book. I can't recall the author's name, a Japanese author. And he shows that water is very sensitive. That if you speak words over water, it changes the crystalline characteristics of the water. And he developed